The 2021 Cincinnati Reds had a pretty darn good offense. It was led by Nicholas Castellanos, Joey Votto, Jesse Winker, Tyler Naquin, and National League Rookie of the Year Jonathan India. There was a lot of power in those bats, too, as those five players had a combined 134 home runs, and Eugenio Suarez, despite struggling overall by having an OPS plus well under league average, still hit 31 homers of his own. They were a lot of fun to watch, and although the team won only 83 games and missed out on a trip to the postseason, they of course had a solid offense, some solid starting pitching, and had a relatively bright future ahead of them. Castellanos of course became a free agent, and there was really no point in time where anybody thought the Reds would make much of an effort really to keep him, let alone sign him to a big contract. Okay, alright, that sucks. Castellanos was a great player to have, but you still have a solid offense and an overall team with potential. And they still would have to this day if the ownership didn't decide to mess things up a bit. Wade Miley was arguably the best pitcher on the Reds staff last season. He threw 163 solid innings and even threw a no-hitter at one point in 2021. The Reds ownership saw him do all of that and decided they needed to release him, only for him to get picked up by the in-division rival Chicago Cubs. The team didn't want to pick up Miley's $10 million option despite doing what I just talked about he did in 2021. The MLB lockout then came and went, and the Reds decided they were not done with their plan to mess things up. First, they got rid of another one of their solid pitchers, Sonny Gray, this time making a trade and sending him to the Minnesota Twins for an 18-year-old prospect. Just days later, the Reds came to the realization that losing Nicholas Castellanos from their lineup wasn't enough. They needed to get rid of more thump, and they did, trading Jesse Winker and Eugenio Suarez to the Mariners for 4 players, going on to trade reliever Amir Garrett to the Royals for Mike Minor. By this point, Reds fans obviously, and fans of all teams, are realizing what the team is doing, simply cutting payroll and playing cheap. Not really what you want to see. This video isn't really about any of that, though, but more so a new face that the Reds decided to go out and sign right before opening day, and just days after trading some of their best players. A new player who signed with the Reds, but not necessarily because he thinks the team will be good. No, seriously, he doesn't think they'll be good, or at the very least, does not care if they are or not. He's just in this thing for himself. Tommy Pham is someone who's put up a really nice career for himself so far. He's a really solid hitter and has been for nearly a decade now, and that's how most of you know him. But his early life is pretty fascinating. Tommy has a twin sister who was born 2 minutes after he was. His mother and father were 17 and 19, respectively, when Tommy and his sister were born, and as you would expect from a couple with newborns who aren't even in their 20s yet, things were rough. Tommy's father was a really good football player, but got too involved with drugs and crime, with his mother's parents agreeing to help her raise her twins, but made it clear that she needed to work. And she did, not finishing high school and working jobs as a busser, server, and later in a bakery. When Tommy and his sister were 5, their mother got married, meaning Tommy now had a stepdad. And it has been documented that Tommy has had issues with his stepdad, even once getting stabbed by him. Tommy's mom worked so much throughout his childhood for obvious reasons, but it was so much to the point where Tommy claims he can count on one hand how many times she attended any of his games throughout his life. Tommy Pham's story from birth all the way to now is one that I at least find really inspiring. His parents couldn't really ever be there for him, as one was in prison all the time with the other having to work as a high school dropout. Yet he worked hard and has become a really good Major League Baseball player. He hasn't been good in 2022 so far, which we'll get to in a moment, but that's beside the point. Back in 2019, the Rays had just gotten done winning 2 games in a row at the Trop to force a decisive Game 5 in Houston against the Astros. And after the game, Pham was asked who he wants to thank for helping him get to where he was in that moment. And this is what he had to say.
Who do you want to thank for helping you get here?
There's a lot of people I could thank, but I'm proud of myself, to be honest with you. I remember throwing the ball against the wall, playing catch with myself, throwing the ball up, hitting it, throwing batting practice to myself. You know what I mean? I believed in myself from a young age. It ain't like I had a dad out there to play catch with me or throw me batting practice. So, I'm proud of myself.
I absolutely love this, and Pham instantly became an easy guy for me to root for after watching that clip for the first time. I think in order to understand Tommy Pham and where he is coming from at all times, it's important to know his backstory, one that's an inspiring one of how he got to where he is today. Pham ended up playing for the Padres in 2020 and 2021. He struggled in the shortened 2020 season, and although he was much better in 2021, he was still very average overall. So Pham still has something to prove, and he knows it. Just under 2 weeks before opening day, Tommy Pham agreed to a one-year deal with the Cincinnati Reds, and he did not hold back the fact that he really isn't in it this year for the team necessarily, but more for himself. This is what he had to say, word for word, quote, "I am going to approach this season as a revenge tour. I'm playing to get my numbers, man. I'm being dead honest with you. There's nothing selfish about it. In the past, I put up some really good seasons. I'm playing to get some numbers. I don't care about anything else. I'm looking out for me. At the end of the day, baseball is going to move on without me. I have to get mine right now." End quote. So you heard it from the man himself. He doesn't care about anything else other than how he does in 2022, and there are a few things to be said about that. To start, although he said there's nothing selfish about it, it's a pretty selfish thing to say and think out loud, for sure, but it can be a little understandable, I guess. Tommy Pham realizes that his last good season was in 2019. He's mostly struggled since, and he needs to prove himself. He also realizes that the Reds are probably not going to be very good this year. So just combine all of that, and he's really just looking out for himself here so he can eventually get on a better team and get a good contract. It's not necessarily a good look, but I feel like that is the reality of more players than we may think. Guys who understand they need to do everything they can to help themselves get better and not necessarily be too invested in the team they are playing for if that team isn't very good. It's not like Pham wouldn't prefer for the Reds to be a contender. Obviously he'd love that, I'm sure, but the bottom line is that he really just wants to have a good year individually and could care less if the Reds aren't good. To start the year, Pham has been really bad to say the least. It's obviously so early, so don't think I'm hounding on the guy. It's just a fact that he started really poorly, just like it's a fact that he has the rest of the season remaining, and at any given point in time, he can start to get hot. And I know that because, well, he's shown that he's capable of being a really good hitter in this league. I'm rooting for the guy, but at the same time, yeah, not a great look to publicly say you don't care about anything other than yourself and how you do. But we'll see how it all turns out for Tommy Pham and the Reds. Let me know what you think about what Tommy Pham said, and thank you for watching.